We now have official confirmation by a magistrate signing this warrant that there's probable cause a crime took place in 2020 in Georgia in the election for the presidency. The other important issue related to election law was finally significant action by the Justice Department and the FBI on some of the, I believe to be, criminal activity that took place surrounding the 2020 election. And they served a warrant. They essentially raided the election hub for Fulton County, Georgia, and with a warrant that allowed them to seize virtually all the ballot information that Fulton County had on the 2020 election. And of course, the left was gone ballistic over this, but I want to explain to you in part why this is important. And I think I kind of got into it pretty directly with Carl Higbee the other day on Newsmax. Let's play a little bit of that before I explain things further.
Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. Sir, you guys have been on this for years, but anybody who raised an eyebrow about it got indicted, sued, whatever. Here we are.
That's right. The president almost went to jail for raising the questions that have now been validated by a federal magistrate. Well, you know, the reason this search warrant was approved was because a federal magistrate looked at the facts and made the conclusion that there was a reasonable belief a crime had taken place, a crime related to the retention of the documents that you've talked about and those commissioners were talking about, but also specifically election crimes. So now we have a federal magistrate confirming that people can have a reasonable belief that crimes took place in Georgia, specifically in Fulton County. None of those issues, by the way, many of which have been raised by President Trump initially in 2020, were ever adjudicated by any state court judge in Georgia. I mean, that's just an amazing development. And to kind of further explain things, the left media has been put out this false narrative. There were 60 cases that were thrown out. You know, most of those cases, virtually all of them, were never addressing did not address the merits. None of the merits were adjudicated. Specifically in Georgia, as I go on to explain with Carl, the Trump campaign filed a challenge in state court that was never heard. The state court simply refused to hear it. They delayed and delayed and delayed until facts overtook the situation, and Biden effectively became president, and the case was over, so they withdrew the case. So none of Trump's cases, as best I could tell, the Trump campaign specific cases, were ever adjudicated on the merits. And so that's one issue. Secondly, now we have, as I said, another major issue is that the subpoena documents confirm that there are crimes being investigated related to the 2020 election. And not just about documents. And the document issues are significant because the controversies recently with respect to documents or ballot documents and documents showing how the ballots were counted show that the ballots were not counted according to the rules. Certifications were not made according to the rules, which throws into doubt the credibility of the whole election, at least in Fulton County. And the Fulton County numbers obviously were enough to help Biden win, I use the word win in quotation marks, the state of Georgia. Now, what does this mean in terms of what is actually going on, the subpoena leading to the FBI raid? Well, it suggests that there's another investigation going on. There's a kind of a broader investigation going on. I don't think there's an investigation in Georgia, based on, what I hear folks with the administration saying in public is that there's something going on in Florida. U.S. attorneys kind of looking at some of these issues. So it's likely this is flowing from the Florida grand jury that we've been told is going to be looking at all of the lawfare and abuses of power and lawlessness related to Trump and his supporters, really, all of us in some respects. They target you, they target me because we're perceived to be Trump supporters. And that's the reality of it. And it was an abuse of power and a violation of civil rights. And the media is pretending, now the double standard is remarkable. So when they raid President Trump's home, it's an indication that he's the worst person in the history of humanity, right? He's a criminal. But when similar court process results in the raid of Fulton County, it's an abuse. It shows that Trump is out of his mind. It shows that conspiracy theories have taken over the Justice Department and FBI, when in fact this is a modest beginning of what ought to be a major and broad investigation. And what the media doesn't want to tell you about also are the crimes that are alleged to have taken place that require this search warrant in order to gather evidence. And when you look at the material in the search warrant, they reference 2 federal criminal statutes. So in order for the magistrate, as I mentioned on Newsmax, in order for the magistrate to sign the search warrant request from the FBI, he's got to have a reasonable belief that the facts show, there's got to be a reasonable belief that the facts show that a crime took place. That's essentially what I understand as a non-lawyer to be the probable cause standard. So there's probable cause a crime took place. And as I noted, there were crimes related to the retention of records. So that's one allegation that is being pursued criminally. So there's probable cause that there was federal law breaking related to the retention of election records. But I want to focus on the other law that was referenced in the search affidavit as being in part the basis for the warrant. And this provision of the federal law is 52 U.S.C. section 20511. So this is the U.S. code, and this is the criminal code. And I want you to take a look at it here on my screen, courtesy of Find Law. Thank you, Find Law. There it is. Voting and elections, criminal penalties. A person, including an election official who in any election for federal office knowingly and willfully intimidates, threatens, or coerces or attempts to intimidate, threaten, or coerce any person for A, registering to vote or voting or attempting to register or vote, urging or aiding any opinion or any person to register to vote, or to attempt to register or vote, or exercising any right under this chapter. So if you threaten people or intimidate people from essentially the voting process, you violated federal law. Now, is this the section they're investigating? Maybe. I would suggest that maybe the next section is most likely what they're investigating. 2, knowingly and willfully defrauds any person who knowingly and willfully defrauds, or attempts to deprive or defraud the residents of a state of a fair and impartially conducted election process by A, the procurement or submission of voter registration applications that are known by the person to be materially false or fictitious or fraudulent under the laws of the state in which the election is held. And I guess this is the kicker, the procurement, casting, or tabulation of ballots that are known by the person to be materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent under the laws of the state in which the election is held. So that is 52 U.S.C. section 20511. Section 2B, or Part 2B. I don't know how they say it in lawyer land. So there you have it. We now have official confirmation by a magistrate signing this warrant that there's probable cause a crime took place in 2020 in Georgia in the election for the presidency. And I see all these leftists out there complaining that there's an investigation going on. They don't want to let the American people have full accountability for what happened in 2020. They think we should all just let bygones be bygones. And to the degree we complain about it, they're going to call us all these names. And as I've noted previously, they've tried to jail us and abuse us. And what a vindication for President Trump this is. They spent 6 years, 5 years, whatever the number is, trying to jail Trump and countless others for saying what a magistrate federal court judge just said. That there's probable cause crimes took place in the elections. And if you said that previously, you'd be censored. If you were a January 6th defendant, it was a reason to keep you in jail longer. I can point you to all sorts of filings the Biden gang filed with the Justice Department anytime any of the January 6th defendants said, I still think the 2020 election was suspect. They said that's more of a reason to keep them in jail. People lost their freedom because of this. People lost their livelihoods because of this. People lost countless resources and money because of the punishment they went through. And this is a vindication for their beliefs. It further shows why the president was right to pardon all the January 6ers. It shows why there should be, in my view, compensation to everyone caught up in this to make up for the abuses of government in the least that were used to go after people who raised questions about this issue. So it's a tremendous vindication for those of us who have been blowing the whistle and have been abused, harassed, and targeted, including yours truly and Judicial Watch. Remember, they hauled me before a grand jury and harassed me on these very issues. I mean, it was my belief that the elections in the states that counted the ballot slate should have been considered compromised. That's what Congress should have done. That's what happened. That's why you had these alternative elector disputes. That was the whole basis for it. And it was all in good faith. Now, you may disagree with me. It doesn't make you a criminal that you disagree with me, nor does it make anyone else a criminal because they disagree with you. But the left wanted to jail people for disputing the 2020 election, and this one subpoena or search warrant signed by this one magistrate judge just blew up the big lie about 2020. Blew it out of the water. Now, the big question is this just something that just happened to happen? Because, look, the Justice Department has been asking for these records for months. I think they sued in court recently. There's been civil litigation to gain access to these records. A lot of these records wouldn't be around for the FBI to have gotten, but for independent activists who were smeared and attacked and made fun of because they kept on demanding access to these ballot materials. You know, and the loser Republicans and the disingenuous left kept on saying, well, you know, they did recounts. They showed they were right. Well, you know, recounting crap still gives you crap. Recounting ballots that are invalid doesn't make the election any more valid. It doesn't get to these underlying issues. So I'm hoping this is the beginning. And you've heard me complain a lot that nothing's happening. Well, now, finally, something's happening. So keep it up. More needs to come. But this is an excellent start, however late. Better late than never when it comes to justice. And you can be sure we're going to be asking, you know, we don't give up on the pressure either here at Judicial Watch. I mean, I want to know what the affidavit was. Normally there's like a document that an FBI agent or someone files with the court explaining what the probable cause is. They lay out facts and evidence. Now, that has not been publicized yet. There'll be reasons they'll give us for not publicizing it. But if I have my druthers, Judicial Watch is going to push to gain as much access to this information as possible to get the full truth out about the crimes that are the subject of investigation. And my view is publicizing it doesn't hurt the criminal investigation. Everyone knows what's being looked at. So let's get it all out. Now, you know, in Fulton County, and I will remind you, we caught Fannie Willis, the corrupt prosecutor down there, district attorney, lying to the court about records about her collusion with Congress, etc. She was sanctioned, had to pay us, I think, over $20,000 because of her corruption. The case was taken from her, and this an official appointed by the state of Georgia dropped the entire case. But it was only happened 2 months ago. So they were still trying to put people in jail, literally for asking the questions a magistrate confirmed. Yes, Virginia, there is something going on in Fulton County that deserves federal criminal scrutiny. So a significant development, and let's hope more comes. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.